What's going on, guys? Week 2 waiver wire. Come and get it. Sunday football. It's in the books. Outstanding slate of games. We got Monday night coming up later today, but that's okay. We're going to dive into the Sunday waivers. These are pickups ahead of week 2 of the fantasy football season. So keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs. What's going on, guys, and welcome back. As I mentioned in the preview, we got your waiver wire ahead of week 2. We're going to be looking at all the waiver wire players from each position to help you keep on dominating your leagues, obviously. Sunday's football is over. Monday Night Football, we'll have those for you tomorrow if there's any waivers from that game. But before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all that good stuff. Comment. If there's a player I missed and you think about wavering them, drop it in the comments. I'll be glad to get back to you on my opinion. So let's dive right into it. The quarterback position, Jameis Winston. Number 1 quarterback waiver in my opinion. 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. Green Bay Packers, they look terrible. If I was the Packers team, personally, I would have called in sick. That's how bad they looked. It was an embarrassing game. Plain and simple from all facets of the Green Bay Packers. So, Jameis Winston, he looked good. Didn't make any mistakes. Found the guys open in the red zone when he needed the touchdowns. 148 yards, 5 touchdowns, as I mentioned. So for me, Jameis Winston, he's got to be a must-add, owned in 44% of Yahoo leagues, in which he could be flirting with that QB1 every single week. So pick up Jameis Winston. He's my number 1 quarterback of the week. My number 2 quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater. Now, he's not going to wow you with the stat line. He obviously isn't. 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's going to be his standard games. And over the next 2 weeks, plays Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets. Good spots if you need a string quarterback in a deeper league and things like that. This is a guy that's going to get you 250, 300 yards, 2+ touchdowns in these matchups. So Teddy Bridgewater is definitely another that's a deep option. A guy that should be a decent QB2 option on your bench just in case. And then lastly, Kirk Cousins, owned in 66% of Yahoo leagues. He should be owned in more, 350+ passing yards, 2+ touchdowns. This is where Kirk Cousins could flirt with on a weekly basis. The Minnesota Vikings defense didn't look all that great, to be honest. So I think Kirk Cousins, once again, we got him as our QB12 on our ranks. I think he's going to have a pretty safe year in which he's going to flirt with that QB1 to obviously high upside QB2 range every single week. Now, Jared Goff, obviously I'm going to bring him up, 300+ yards, 3 touchdowns. Had an okay day against the Niners team in which they were getting destroyed, and all of his stats were padded because of this, in comeback mode with the soft defense. But, hey, it's the Detroit Lions. They're probably going to be in negative game script a lot. You could see Jared Goff on a weekly basis put up top 10 to 15 quarterback numbers just based on the matchups, knowing that this team is not going to be very good. So Jared Goff is definitely an option and a definite guy that you could be streaming in matchups in which his games could be getting out of hand. At the wide receiver position, Nelson Aguilar. This is a guy, 5 receptions, 72 yards and a touchdown. Mac Jones, if he's going to be pushing the ball downfield with the wide receivers, Nelson Aguilar is going to be your guy. I do like Jacoby Myers, but I don't necessarily know if he's going to see a lot of the red zone work or downfield threats, and Nelson Aguilar is that type of player. So this is a guy that should be rostered in a lot of leagues. Mac Jones played pretty well yesterday. The Patriots should have won the game. Damian Harris cost it at the end, but that's okay. Mac Jones played great. Nelson Aguilar had a good game. I think you could see a lot of these stat lines for Nelson Aguilar on a weekly basis. So he's a guy you got to have on your roster. And then obviously a couple guys, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler. Jerry Jeudy, dealing with a high ankle sprain, could possibly miss 4 to 6 weeks, maybe even longer. Tim Patrick, they like to use him in the red zone. He's a touchdown threat every week. And then KJ Hamler. We saw how explosive he was, just dropped a 50-yard touchdown. But KJ Hamler on a weekly basis could be that guy to fill in on that large target share volume. Cortland Sutton, yes, he's still limited in coming back, so we don't know there. But I like KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick in this offense. They got the Jets and the Jaguars on the docket in the next couple weeks. So these are 2 guys that should be owned and definite flex options on at least in the next couple weeks. And then Sterling Shepard had an okay game. He honestly has a lot of pretty good games when he plays and he's on the field. 7 for 113 and a touchdown this week. He's Daniel Jones' security blankie, period. When you're a little kid, you have that blanket that you hold on to, period, to fall asleep. That's what Sterling Shepard is to Daniel Jones. He's going to be there. He's the guy that is going to get targeted the most in this offense. Kadarius Toney doesn't look like he's going to get involved yet. Kenny Galladay had a few targets. He actually looked pretty decent, to be honest. But, I mean, obviously I can't trust Daniel Jones at all. But Sterling Shepard is going to be the number 1 target on this team. And what it's looking like so far, definitely got to be must-add. He's going to see probably the highest volume in this offense. And a couple deep stashes for me. I like Jalen Reagor. Caught a touchdown yesterday, 6 targets. Did okay in an offense in which he's pretty much the wide receiver 2, guaranteed. Devontae Smith also looked outstanding. Caught a touchdown, all the rookies this week. So Jalen Reagor is a deep stash for me. A guy that in shootout potential games could be flex options on a weekly basis. And then Rondale Moore looked explosive, period, in the limited play that he got. So Rondale Moore is another guy that I'm stashing. Christian Kirk, okay, he's going to be a big waiver wire guy. Every single week, Christian Kirk, you're going to see this. 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. Outstanding stat line. And then next week, he'll have 1 catch for 8 yards. And he'll lose you your fantasy team. So I don't get me wrong, Christian Kirk is a guy that's going to be added a lot in a lot of spots. He's done this before. We've seen this. Can he actually step into that safe wide receiver 2 type role? AJ Green did not look very good yesterday. And Rondale Moore looked explosive. So can Christian Kirk be valuable on a weekly basis? I think he can. But we have not seen the consistency in his play for me to be trusting him as a guy that I can plug and play. Obviously, you're going to be rostering him. He's going to be wavered heavily, but I like a couple of guys that I've already mentioned. And as I mentioned, like Zach Pascal, this is another guy that had an outstanding day yesterday, 2 touchdowns. But I don't know if you're going to be able to trust him on a weekly basis as a flyer type option. Yeah, they're boomer bust players that could get nothing or do very, very well. The running back position. First off, Elijah Mitchell, San Francisco 49ers. You want to be tied to this backfield, period. Raheem Mostert, out with an injury in this game. Now, how precautionary was it? He didn't look too upset on the sideline when he was standing there. Looked all smiles. So I don't know how serious or severe his knee injury is. Trey Sermon, a surprise scratch to a lot of people. They must have just liked Elijah Moore better this week. Obviously, they're special teams players. There's the talks that, okay, well, they play special teams. They needed the roster spots, whatever. We'll have to wait and see with Trey Sermon. Obviously, he's rostered in many, many leagues. So Elijah Moore, rostered in only 8% of Yahoo leagues. Comes out 100 yards and a touchdown against the Detroit Lions defense, obviously, that's terrible. But we know the 49ers like to run the football. He looked pretty explosive, busted off a big run for a touchdown. So Elijah Moore's got to be my number 1 waiver this week at the running back position. A potential to fill in as a solid RB2, depending on if Sermon's active next week, and we'll wait and see. JaMychal Hasty's another deep stash. We've seen him run a little bit too. So this is a guy you might be targeting a little lower on your waiver wire. But Elijah Mitchell, my number 1 running back target, period. On to the next running back. Mark Ingram, Old Faithful, 23 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. Albeit it was a great game script for him to have this many carries. I don't think the Texans are going to see this many games in this type of game script. But if Mark Ingram's leading that backfield, with this kind of workload, you want to have that running back. In my opinion, David Johnson. All 3 of these running backs caught a touchdown. It was incredible. But David Johnson, in my opinion, I think the Texans are going to be a lot more negative game script than you think. And David Johnson's clear cut the running back in those 3-down roles and the passing roles. He caught a touchdown on Sunday. So Mark Ingram, of course, he's a must-add. That kind of workload, you got to have that guy. But I do like David Johnson a little bit deeper for the reception work in a negative game script type play where the Texans are probably going to find themselves a lot this season. Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't know what you're doing. It makes no sense at all. You got blown out by the Texans. That's embarrassing. But another running back we're going to look at, Kenneth Gainwell. This is the Philadelphia Eagles. Looked pretty good. 30-plus yards and a touchdown. Obviously, Miles Sanders. He's seeing the bulk of the snap share. Gainwell's a clear, solid running back option that possibly could be flexed in some of these matchups where the Eagles could find themselves in shootouts or a negative game script. Don't get me wrong, Miles Sanders played great. Take nothing away from him, but we know his injury history. He doesn't tend to be able to stay on the field. So Gainwell, I think, is a big, nice stash, a good handcuff that looked pretty good. This is a guy that I would be picking up and stashing on my bench, especially if you're a Miles Sanders owner and you need that running back depth, or if you just went no RB and you need some running back depth, Kenneth Gainwell could be that guy for you. The tight end position, Juwan Johnson. Came out, not really came out of nowhere, but had a pretty decent preseason. Catches 2 touchdowns from Jameis Winston. 3 targets, 3 catches, 20 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's a touchdown target in an offense that's going to throw for some touchdowns. And what do tight ends do? We need touchdown targets, period. That's what you want for your tight end, especially if you're taking dart throws. So Juwan Johnson in Yahoo, eligible at the wide receiver tight end position, doesn't really make much of a difference, but still, this is a guy that you got to be rostering. Look good. Another tight end, Jared Cook. I mentioned it in the tight end video. I think that he's got a lot of sleeper value for that Los Angeles Chargers team. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 56 yards. And this is a guy that, he's not going to blow you away on a weekly basis. But I think there's enough production there where Justin Herbert targeted Hunter Henry 90 times last year. Where Jared Cook, I could see a viable top 12 fantasy option on a weekly basis. So Jared Cook's got to be a must-add for me. A guy that's going to see some sort of volume compared to a lot of tight ends where you're hoping to take that touchdown dart throw. And then Cole Kmet, 7 targets, 5 catches, 42 yards. This is another guy that's going to have a lot of volume, I think, throughout the season. My worry, they still like Jimmy Graham in the red zone. And you saw it when they lined up in the red zone, Jimmy Graham on the outside, period. But Cole Kmet, I think, is going to see a lot of run this season. They got a lot of high hopes for him to take a step. And if you're looking for a tight end that's going to get 6+ targets in an offense on a weekly basis, Cole Kmet could be that guy. So these are 3 tight ends. If you need to take a shot on a tight end, a guy you want a backup tight end just in case your guy's going to get hurt or whatever else, these are guys that you should be targeting at the tight end position. And then defense, Arizona Cardinals, 6 sacks on Ryan Tannehill. They look great. Now, albeit it's not going to be like this every single week, but they can't just double Chandler Jones anymore. This is going to be great for that defense. I think they've been up and coming and young, and they're finally putting it together. I think Arizona could possibly finish as a top 10 fantasy defense this season. So that's it. That's been the waiver wire for all the Sunday games ahead of week 2 of the NFL season. If there was a guy I didn't mention, like I mentioned, drop it in the comment section below. And like the video, don't forget, like and subscribe. We're going to have everything, your waivers, your sit starts. Ask us any questions. I'll be glad to give you my advice. So once again, for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott, and I'm out.